the sound on? Yeah. Without growth and without progress, words like improvement, achievement, and success would not exist. Good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to say that it's a privilege of standing here in front of you today in the short time that we have. A privilege, but also slightly terrifying, I must admit. It's great to be here with you today to talk about something that we're really passionate in, which is learner-centric learning. My name is Matthew McIntyre. I'm here from a company called OnTrack International, and I'm the head of learning. And OnTrack, we celebrate our 30th anniversary this year, which is quite exciting. As an organisation, we focus typically on three areas, which is live learning, which we've done for the last 30 years quite successfully, creation of learning content, and the third one is bespoke learning platforms as well. And we're in that quite unique position where we can combine all three of them together to create some exciting learning and development opportunities, initiatives, and solve some rather strategic problems that occur today. So the topic of learner-centric learning, like I said, it's something that we're quite fascinated with at OnTrack, and we like to get involved. And in the short time that I have here with you today, there are three key areas that I'd like to talk to you about. The first one is, I suppose, how personal learning has changed over time. The second one is how organizational learning has changed over time as well. And the third one is how does learner-centric learning feature in all of this and help us today. So three key areas. So if I jump up to my first one here, and let me show you a picture of where we're going to first. If we start with our ancient ancestors and go back, and we look at how it must have been such a steep learning curve that they had, which was really about either adapt, or you get left behind, or you get eaten. So adapt or get left behind. And I suppose, in essence, we find the first true sense of on-the-job learning that we come across, where you see the results are quite instant and can be relatively painful. The question is always asked is, can I eat it, or is it going to eat me? And we go from there as we go and progress as humans to many years later. And if I give you some examples of my life here, I'm probably sadly looking around and thinking I'm maybe one of the oldest in the room. And I know that when I was in college and in schooling and all the rest of it, I had to go to this building that we used to have. It's called a library. I don't know if you remember what one of those is. And it has loads of books that you have to research. And the challenge of a library is, one, you can't talk, and two, it's got a closing time. And three, there are certain books they won't let you take. So I remember sitting there thinking, how do I take these books without getting rugby tackled by this scary librarian? And how do I copy and use the content that was within it to be able to be successful in my education at the time? All I can say is me and the photocopier were best friends at the time there. In fact, if I take a step back a little bit further than that, and I look at that word called encyclopedia, it's probably not a word we use these days that often, but the word encyclopedia. And I don't know about you, but I remember a friend of mine called Stephen Holland, and he had an entire set of Encyclopedia Britannicas. I was so jealous. It was unbelievable. I swore to myself. Now, I don't know if these were the up-to-date ones. I don't know if they were the last year, the last decade, the last century. It didn't matter. He had Encyclopedia Britannica. He could sit there and read completely useless information at his heart's content. And I swore to myself that one day I would have an entire set of Encyclopedia Britannicas. I would not be that evil parent that my parents were. My children would have it. And as I stand here today, I sort of chuckle to myself thinking, how ridiculous. Who needs Encyclopedia Britannica? These days, if we want to find something out, we ask Google. And Google tells us everything. And it has no closing time. There is no scary librarian that tells you to be quiet. You can look at things to your heart's content. And if I look down the bottom there, we have so many other areas that we can use as well. YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, TED Talks, and so on. We are so lucky today compared to what we used to have not many years ago. So as we see, personal learning has changed. And if I can share with you a particular triumph that I have had recently. I've been married for 20-something years. And in all that time, I have never mastered the Yorkshire pudding. And I used to cheat. I would buy Aunt Bessie's Yorkshire pudding mix. I know you look disgusted at me right now, and I'm ashamed to admit it.
That's another all-time family favourite from Aunt Bessie's.
For 20 odd years, I've been buying these things and taking credit. Actually, it feels good to tell this to you, to share it. It really does. Therapy. And the other week, I forgot to buy some, and my family were expecting my famous Yorkshire puddings. And I'm thinking, oh, this could be disaster here. Who do I turn to? YouTube. So I looked at YouTube. Brilliant. Best Yorkshire puddings I've ever made. Never go back. Aunt Bessie, you're now redundant. I do my own Yorkshire puddings. So as a personal perspective, all our learning has changed, from word of mouth, from apprenticeships, from working with someone else, to actually I can just see some expert on YouTube and I'll just copy what they do. The second point I want to share with you today, we'll look at how organisational training has changed. If we don't go back too many years where really training was, I suppose, limited to either product training, equipment training, or health and safety training. And some of you are nodding going, yeah, it still is. That's the problem. Product training, equipment training, and health and safety training. It wasn't too many years later that organisations started to realise that if I have emotionally intelligent staff, I will have very happy customers. If I have great staff with great behavioural skill sets, I will have some happy customers. I will retain those customers, I will increase my profit, and so on. So here we started with the renaissance of training, or the introduction to the bulk buy training was introduced. When organisations will say, we need to get this training. Time management, get it in there. Presentation skills, bring it. Dealing with conflict, come on, bring it with me. And I love these days. I used to go into organisations, I could mention them to you, whether it was RSA, HSBC, HBOS, Royal Bank of Scotland, Barclays, etc., etc. Sometimes you'd find groupies on the courses, and you look at them thinking, hang on, I'm sure I've seen you in 4 courses, 4 workshops prior to this. We love it, they would say. Not me, just the workshop, clearly. Why do we do this? Well, I suppose why we did it is because economically it made sense. It was much more cost efficient to buy in general training for the masses than it was to probably do the right thing, which was individualise it for specific teams and functions. So we did that. I remember there's a couple of examples I'll share with you, and I won't share the names because I'll protect the innocent here. There was one organisation, a famous high street bank, that asked us, in fact their CEO came out with a mandate which said, no one is allowed to interview until they have been accredited. Make it happen. So I remember for many weeks working with the occupational psychologist team to get this accredited interviewing workshop in. 6 years later, approximately 15,000 managers went through this program. It was fantastic fun. It was a great success in there. Years later, I bumped into people that used to work for this organisation and said, I did that program, I loved it. As I look at that now, I think, boy, it could have been so much better with what we know now, with the tools that we have at our disposal. Another example is, and this is a fairly recent one, where I was working with another organisation and we were working on some training solutions for them, and I kept saying to them, look, I'm not seeing the fit here. I don't understand where you're going to follow up with this. How will we embed this learning? How will this learning make a difference to your people? No, we're not interested in that. Just roll out the learning, roll out the learning. I said, but this could be so much better. Let us help you. No, we haven't got time, roll it out. Sadly, 4 years later, the 2 people are no longer with the organisation anymore, and when you speak to the new people, they say, Matt, we've got no budget anymore. We've just spent a fortune and we had no results to show for it. What do we do? And so you hear stories like that again and again, where good-meaning organisations have spent lots of money to help do the right thing, but as we look today, we think, but could it have been better? Should it have been better? And the answer is absolutely yes. So if I start to look at some of these here, and I was looking at Google, interestingly enough, as I do, and I looked at the world, and the current population is approximately over 7.5 billion people. And I find that fascinating. There are so many people out there. What I found more fascinating was everyone is unique in different ways. We have eye retinas. Everyone's got a different set of eyes, and we see them from the spy films, don't we? James Bond and all the rest of it, going up to the eye scanner. Fingerprints are different and unique. Interestingly enough, our belly buttons are all different. In fact, why don't we... No, let's not do that. Ears, I didn't realise, but everyone's ears are very unique and different. And that's actually how they can spot people these days. When, anyway, they try and stay hidden, is they identify ears. Weirdly enough, I didn't realise. Our speech patterns and the way we speak and write is extremely individual to us. We are so unique in so many ways. Wouldn't it make sense that our learning is as individual as our fingerprint? So when we look at what we did 10 years ago and so on, and bulk buy learning and bringing it all in, which personally I loved because it was great fun doing it, but shouldn't it be more refined? Shouldn't it be more focused? Shouldn't it be more learner-centered as we make that? So let me look at my third area here. And what I wanted to do here is really to give you some examples of this. But before I do, I suppose let's look at what we mean by learner-centered learning here. Let's look at what it isn't. And I suppose learner-centered learning is not where we just organisationally focused training. It's not sheep-dipping our people and chucking them on workshops and programs of me being the recipient of that and having to deal with some of these people. I remember, if I share one very brief example here, I remember working in one organisation and this man came on this training and he was incandescent with rage. He was so angry. And I said, whoa, you're angry? Why are you angry? I've just been... And this person had to be sent to Texas to sit on an IT program. And I'm sitting there thinking, I don't see a downside of this. You're a week here in Texas, all expenses paid. I think this is fantastic. And then he explained that he's the one that wrote the program in his previous company. He was absolutely furious. He didn't last long in the organisation. So instead of being this way of sheep dipping, instead of having these programs that have no context, no pre-work, post-work, follow-through, follow-up, what we do is we start to individually focus our learning as much as we can. And I'll give you some examples of this in a moment. We become outcome driven. What's the outcome that we need and how do we get that? And how do we achieve that? We set our people up for long-term success. Not for short-term opportunity, but for long-term success. How do we change these people and help these people develop for long-term? So with that, the third section I really want to look at here today is a couple of different examples to share with you. And some really exciting ones that we've been involved in. So I'll just share three with you, if I may. So the first one I want to share with you is we call it the Female Associate Program. I was called into an organisation. It was a contact that I had in the previous organisation, was on secondment, called me in and said, we have a problem here, Matt. What's the problem? The problem is our associate level of talent are leaving. This is it's an investment section, investment banking. We are very male dominated. As more senior you go, the more male dominated it becomes. That's a huge issue for us. We've got some targets we need to achieve. Our female talent population are leaving us and going to other places. And the culture in this organisation, and for the part of the world the organisation comes from, is male dominated as well. Help us. So as we worked with them and we started to look at what are their problems, what are the specific areas, using a formula which we do, which is our critical questioning, which I'll talk a little bit about later. We came up with a program, and my apologies, it's very busy, this slide. But in essence, what we did was we looked at key modules to come up with. We didn't have 1 or 2 days with them, we had 2-3 hours tops. So let's really target and give them a shot of what they really, really needed here. To help embed the learning, my other colleague Kate worked with me, and she worked with the groups for 90 minutes every other week to really look at how it was embedding. What can we do? What are the challenges that you're facing in the organisation to get this message across? And also the icing on the cake, as well as other things, was how to include networking events into it. Let's expose these people to some really senior examples of female talent in their organisation, and male one as well, and let them be exposed to that, let them learn from them, and so on. I love this program. I was so proud of it. And the interesting thing about this one is, and this is the unique to the three that I'll share with you, is this: it was all face-to-face. We said to them, look, we have digital solutions, digital answers, digital options here for you. That's what they wanted. We wanted face-to-face. We want to bring people together for short, sharp bursts. So what was the result? Well, I love it being a learning professional and when you see things happen well. And I loved it. So within a 6-month period of when the program finished, the whole cohort that was there, over 45% of them were promoted to the VP level, the next level up. So nearly half of the group were promoted to the next level up and that's exactly what they wanted. And all of them said the program was the driver, the vehicle that got them there as well. And they raved about it. As a result, it was only going to be a one-off. We're now in the 3rd, 4th, 5th year of going through it, where we're getting more and more talent coming in. And we're still getting those great results with it as well. So our first option here is a face-to-face. The second case study I want to share with you is something called Skill Builders. Skill Builders is such an exciting project because it was a logistical nightmare. We have the world's biggest financial institution, HSBC, have a problem. The problem is we have in our branches approximately 48,000 people that need to be upskilled in one way or another. We have just under 6,000 branch managers. We have 31 countries that they are scattered in with 17 languages. So how do you upskill this amount of people using traditional methods and options? And the answer is we couldn't. We really, really couldn't. So what we thought of and what we did and came up with was a solution, and we called it Skill Builders, which was how do we build on the skill that they're needing? And we did it via, those that can read it, who are the experts that do it really, really well? And what we do is we bring them together. And who are those experts? And people from other areas and sectors as well. And they can identify where the problems are, but also they can tell us how you should do it well. Number 2, local knowledge. Hong Kong is different than Canada, is different to London, is different to Mexico. They've all got that level of uniqueness which needs to be adapted in. The third, global production. How do we create this globally, that it goes globally, that local people can see it in local language, with local nuance and local skills in there? And finally, let's use the staff. Let's make it real. And so we use the staff, not to play the part of the customer, but to play the part of the HSBC employee. And we use local staff to play the part in there. And so what we did was we came together in a series of workshops, 16 people in a workshop, one day, 16 issues and scripts that we had to come up with, using critical questioning that we use as an organisation, day in, day out, which are taken from our partner, Charles Kepner, which is one of the world's gurus at problem-solving decision-making. And we create the 16 scripts based on the individual challenges they have. What's the success rate here? What's happened? Well, let's have a look. In July this year, we launched in Hong Kong. By the end of the month, they had 40,000 full views, not 2 minute and then we got bored, full views of the learning content, which was unheard of. It was learning gone viral over there, and it was recommendation after recommendation, and you've got to see this, you've got to see this, you've got to watch this. And look at me, I'm the actor in it. It was absolutely staggering and far achieved what our client expected of us, and actually what we thought as well. We've just got some new information coming through as well. From July, they've noticed that every month it's incrementally increased 20% of the coaching conversations that have taken place. So month 1, 20%. Month 2, was an additional 20% on top of the original. And on and on and on it's gone. It's been so successful, and something that we're really proud of. That how do you make learning individual and learner-centered as well? In fact, I'm so excited. Can I just share with you just a minute clip of one of the videos, just what it looks like. From memory, this is agenda setting, so it's just looking at that. So you'll see the HSBC person, you'll see the actor. It is in English here. So I'll show you just a minute.
Calling customers to set the agenda for an upcoming meeting is always time well spent. It helps us confirm the customer's needs, set their expectations, and reduce the risk of any confusion or misunderstanding. It's also a chance to listen, to hear the customer's challenges and priorities in their own words. Putting the time in to make a call will make the forthcoming meeting more effective. It will ensure the customer walks in with the right expectations and any needed documentation. and walks out with the answers and solutions they need. In the following scene, our colleague calls a customer who has requested an appointment via email. Remember to find the right environment to make your call. If you prefer to find a quiet space, then it's okay to do that. Because when you feel comfortable, so does your customer.
Hi, this is William calling from HSBC here in New York to talk about the email you sent to our customer relations team yesterday.
Yes, thanks for calling so quickly.
As your relationship manager here at your local HSBC, I'll be your single point of contact to help you and your family with all your financial needs. Now, I saw from your email you're looking for advice on how to get the most out of your savings. Is that right?
It sure is.
That's great. I'm glad that we're on the same page. So I wanted to use this call to confirm a suitable time and day when you're free to come in and also gather some more detail about exactly what you'll like to discuss.
Okay, great.
So first of all, when would you have time to come in and see us?
I'm free on Wednesday. I have to do some grocery shopping after work, so I'll pass by the branch, say 4 p.m.
Perfect. I have you scheduled for Wednesday at 4 p.m. Now, after reading your email, I've identified several topics that I'd like to discuss with you. But obviously, the meeting is about you and what you need. So is there anything specific you'd like to address?
Well, I'm not sure whether it's relevant, but the main reason I want to reevaluate my savings is because I'm saving for my son's college expenses. And I don't want him to be overloaded with debt like so many other kids, so I want to help him out as much as I can.
No, I agree. Your son's very lucky to have someone who wants to invest in their future. You know, I was lucky enough to have my parents do the same for me. I'm grateful because some of my friends came out of college owing almost $50,000. It's a real burden on them and their families now.
Okay, my apologies. I'll pause it there. What I like about these, and I just want to stress that point here as well, is they're not videos just created in mass amount of strips. These were specifically targeted to solve the individual challenges that they had, either globally or locally, that they had. And it was a real privilege to be a part of that as well and see that continual success that's going along in that project. The third example I want to share with you, and the case study, is one of our clients here called Greencore. Now, I don't know, show of hands, anyone heard of Greencore before? We have three. Fantastic. So we have our three, and Greencore, I must admit, was not a company I'd heard of, but they are the world's largest producers of sandwiches. So chances are, if you bought a sandwich today, there is a good possibility that Greencore has made that sandwich for you. And so they had some unique challenges that they faced in their organization. And the challenge was that they had their environment that they worked within was unique, in which case it was 24/7 operating. So when you've got people working through the night, how do you get them in to upskill them in training? It's a huge challenge, they said. So how do we need training to go 24/7, because our people go 24/7. We've got people scattered and working over the place, so we need training to follow them wherever they go. We need to be able to upskill them. We need something flexible, and we need you to help us to do this. And also, look, the reality is we haven't got millions and millions and millions of budget here. Every penny is critical, and every penny has got to show a return on investment as well. So let me just give you, my apologies. I'm going to just share with you a video. Now, Natalie Rogers, who is the head of talent and development for Greencore, who we worked with, and they worked in partnership with us and an organization called Grapple to look at combining and creating this learning to make a huge difference in this global leader. I wish she was here today. Sadly, she's not, but we've got her own video. So I'm just going to show you the video now and let her speak to you and tell you what had happened.
The challenge I was given was we keep investing in development and nothing changes, so it's not sticking. They wanted choice, and in the past we hadn't done that. We'd offered them one solution, which was classroom environment, but actually they wanted tools on the job. They wanted to be able to learn something quickly in the hand rather than in a classroom. kind of mantra was a one-stop shop for everything you need, whether you've been doing it for 5 minutes or 20 years ultimately. We wanted to create an environment where people could share. Because we have the knowledge, sometimes it's just difficult to find it. So we wanted to create that platform. Grow with Greencore is the platform that holds all our learning resources for line managers. And we've built it from nothing. It's an online platform and it's mobile, so you can get on it 24 hours a day from your tablet, from your phone, from a PC. And what it does is it puts learning in the hands of line managers when they need it ultimately. Particularly with the 24/7 nature of our business, and the job of manager at our business is challenging. So a lot of them are finding that they want to do some of the reflective stuff outside of work, and they're using their home tablets and kind of devices to do that. And so managers elect to do things, and they choose what they go on, which means they're more engaged in it because ultimately they want to do it rather than us saying you must do these things. So that's shifted it quite a bit, and it's also meant that managers are in the driving seat, whereas it used to be us. And we would own their development for them. Now we've given them the tools to be able to do that themselves. But what we're seeing is there was a misconception in our business that learning happened only when you were at work. You know, ultimately you clock in and you start learning. But what this has helped us demonstrate is that that's mobile and people actually want to learn outside of work as well. People like that kind of interactive online content. So why wouldn't we tap into that? That was kind of like a missed opportunity if we didn't. It gives us that flexibility that we didn't have before. So at the moment there's 410 resources on our portal, which we think will get to about 600. So when you look at somebody's individual journey, every one of them is unique. What we're now seeing is that our middle management population, so these are the guys who manage managers, they're using it for themselves, but they're also then using it for their teams because they're responsible for their managers being effective. We've got share functionality in the portal which enables line managers to share content, and we've just enhanced that so you can now share it with your peer group, with your team that you're in, with the team that report into you, and with any number of individuals. It's easy to access, it's a couple of clicks, and most of our videos are very short.
I've seen people who've been in role for a long time massively changing the level of confidence, changing their overall positivity and approach.
You can see the payoff now that people are starting to use it in their everyday life at work, and they're using it to be able to manage themselves and the team better.
I went on the other week and watched a video on understanding the P&L because I sit in a meeting every morning and we discuss the P&L and I don't know about it and I don't really know enough information to sit there and contribute. I watched a video and I read a sort of one-page infographic, and I'm not saying I'm the expert, but I do feel like I actually understand what the P&L is about, to sort of sit around a table and join in on a meaningful conversation about it.
Some of those who've been most successful are the people who've empowered themselves to say, actually, somebody's given me this gift, so I'm actually going to take it and I'm going to use it. We have set people up to succeed.
What a great story. And I just want to share with you, as I'm coming near the end here, let's just have a quick look at some of the, I suppose, the results of what's occurred there in this example here. This year they won the L&D Best L&D Initiative for CIPD People Management Awards. The winner of the IGD Award for Learning and Development. They were shortlisted for the Excellence in Design of Learning Content, and they're finalists of the Best Learning and Development Strategy category in this year's Learning Technology as well. What a privilege it was to be a part of it, to see learning come about to everyone, and almost just-in-time learning as well. So ladies and gentlemen, I suppose in summary, as I'm coming to the end here, really the three key areas of today's presentation was about, number one, individual learning has changed. We know that. We're in that change. But we've seen it going from Encyclopedia Britannicas to these wonderful contraptions and smartphones and smart machines that we have, which give us instant accessibility to so much content and knowledge. We've seen, secondly, organisational learning has changed as well. From the bare minimum to masses of it that was probably undirected, to now we see this just-in-time learning, the learner-centric learning, the how do we make this learning stick and set our people up for success so they can be more emotionally intelligent and make our customers happier. And finally, the third one is some examples of learner-centric learning, of where learning has become individualized in different formats, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's digital, whether it's a combination. But the secret is to blend the learning together, to get the outcome, to help our people succeed. But I suppose in finishing, let me just conclude by saying, in the words of Benjamin Franklin, the famous inventor, statesman, key contributor to the Declaration of Independence and the American Constitution, who said, "Without growth and progress, and for us especially in the industry of learning and development of our people, words like improvement, achievement, and success just don't exist." Thank you very much.